Once you start to look at the world through the lens of left and right hemisphere dominance, you start to see the dichotomy everywhere. One place where this is particularly apparent is in stories, from ancient myths to modern fiction. The complex relationship between Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter in Thomas Harris's work provides a fascinating lens through which to explore Ian McGilchrist's theory of brain hemisphere division, as detailed in his masterpiece, The Master and His Emissary. As we've discussed in another video, McGilchrist's theory posits that the right hemisphere of the brain, the master, is responsible for holistic, empathetic thinking and the understanding of interconnected realities, while the left hemisphere, the emissary, focuses on egoic, narrow, analytical thinking and looks at the world and others as objects or machines to be manipulated, and ultimately separate from the self. The correct relationship between these two hemispheres is for the right hemisphere to lead and the left hemisphere to follow. But in our world, that relationship is inverted.
If you were directly above him, how could you see him?
Because I was inverted.
When applied to Graham and Lecter, this model illuminates the difference between Will as an individual demonstrating what it looks like when the right hemisphere leads, and Hannibal as a figure of pure left hemisphere dominance. Will Graham represents the dominance of right hemisphere thinking, which is characterized by empathy, intuition, and a holistic understanding of the world. His unique ability to empathize deeply with others, particularly with violent criminals, allows him to become the killers he profiles. This intense connection demonstrates the right hemisphere's capacity for understanding people beyond surface-level appearances, tapping into the emotional and psychological layers that motivate their actions. Will doesn't merely analyze, he feels, embodying the empathy and fluid thinking that define right hemisphere mastery. His empathy is his greatest strength as a profiler. This holistic approach to life is seen in Will's non-linear thought processes and his experiences of visions, dreams, and altered states of consciousness, where he gains insights into the mysteries he investigates. These experiences reflect his intuitive and subconscious connection to the world, unbound by rigid logic or structure. Will's ability to access these deeper layers of experience allow him to see life in its complexity, ambiguity, and interconnectedness, qualities that are central to the right hemisphere's worldview. However, Will's right hemisphere dominance comes at a cost. His ability to empathize so deeply with killers often leaves him overwhelmed, blurring the boundaries between himself and the darkness he encounters. The right hemisphere's strength in connecting to the broader emotional spectrum can also make Will vulnerable to psychological fragmentation as he struggles to reconcile his empathy with the violent realities he faces. Despite this, his core remains rooted in an empathic, interdependent view of the world, reflecting the right hemisphere as master. In stark contrast, Hannibal Lecter exemplifies the dominance of left hemisphere thinking, which focuses on control, analysis, and manipulation. Hannibal's intellect is extraordinary, but it's also detached and cold, reflecting the left hemisphere's tendency to dehumanize and objectify. While Will connects emotionally and holistically with others, Hannibal views people as objects to manipulate for his own curiosity and brutal amusement. His brilliance is reduced to a form of domination, driven by intellect and the desire for control, but devoid of the empathy that defines the right hemisphere. Hannibal's thought process is linear, rational, and highly strategic, allowing him to craft elaborate schemes with precision. This is emblematic of left hemisphere thinking, which thrives on categorization and order. While Hannibal appreciates beauty and art, his appreciation is merely intellectual rather than emotional, further underscoring his left brain dominance. His capacity for language and deception is unparalleled. yet it is all in service of control, manipulation, and a rigid, logical worldview. It's worth noting that one apt metaphor for the left hemisphere is that of the predator, and Lecter is quite literally a hunter. He is highly focused and goal-oriented, tracking and taking his quarry, and then butchering and consuming his prey, sometimes while they're still alive. What makes Hannibal so dangerous is his over-reliance on left hemisphere thinking without the balancing influence of the right. Unmoored from the relational understanding of the right hemisphere, Lecter could potentially do anything, no matter how cruel, sadistic, in the pursuit of his goal. The left hemisphere, according to McGilchrist, is meant to serve the right, not dominate it. In Hannibal's case, his left hemisphere has taken over completely, making him an emissary without a master. He lacks the right hemisphere's capacity for empathy, emotional connection, or understanding of life's deeper, holistic meaning. Severed from the essence of what it is to be human, Lecter is pathological and incredibly destructive, much like our modern left hemisphere dominant culture. The dichotomy between holistic understanding and detached manipulation also plays out in their relationship. Will sees connections and emotional depth. Hannibal reduces people to objects, tools in his intellectual gains, and ultimately prey. Will's right brain dominance gives him a sense of connection to Hannibal, even when he knows intellectually that Hannibal is dangerous. His empathy makes him vulnerable to Hannibal's manipulations, while Hannibal, on the other hand, uses his left brain dominance to toy with Will, exploiting Will's empathy for his own purposes. In the end, Hannibal's need for control and power blinds him to the deeper emotional realities that Will instinctively understands, which leads to Hannibal's capture. The relationship between Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter can be understood as a representation of the imbalance between the brain's two hemispheres. Will embodies the right hemisphere's mastery over empathy, intuition, and interconnectedness, while Hannibal is the left hemisphere's emissary, fixated on control, analysis, and manipulation. In The Master and His Emissary, McGilchrist argues that the right hemisphere should lead, with the left serving its goals. In Will and Hannibal's case, this balance is tragically skewed, with Hannibal's left brain dominance cutting him off from the emotional and spiritual depths that Will, for all his struggles, remains connected to. Their dynamic is a profound exploration, one of the many found in pop culture, that presages the coming changes in the collective consciousness. Our understanding of these two hemispheres and two modes of consciousness can either work harmoniously together or destroy the world. The choice is ours.